Okay, so today's agenda. One is blueprint overview. We're going to go over some basic blueprints and see like the general idea we have. And two is specific part review and dimension sheet. What a dimension sheet is kind of like guiding you to how to actually, get your medical device, part working. Then third, we're going to go over part assignment to members, meaning what parts are you guys going to have to CAD and what type of, things you're going to have to 3D model. Okay, so first of all, blueprint overview. So we started out with this model, if you guys remember from very early. I kind of like suggested the stationary idea of having point A and B and having like this fan type. Since the fan type be recommended to some of our mentors, we're going to stick with the fan type. But of course, we're going to change up A and B, as you guys said. We're going to make it a little bit more complex. So we had this model where instead of actually having two sticks that open and close your hand, we'll have two retracting, semicircles that are going to open up and close that will facilitate motion. And then here's some blueprinting I did. So first of all, everyone can see my screen, right? Okay, yeah, I assume so. Okay, so if you see over here, the green part over here, in the, do you guys also see my cursor? Okay, that's good. So if you guys see the green part over here, that's the part that's actually going to move. This blueprint isn't going to, rally at too much detail, but what's supposed to do is show you how we're going to actually build this thing. So we have wrist 1, which is the base plate. This is going to be like just our very basic, root of our design, where it's just a base plate. It's probably going to be like a sheet metal that's a little bit thicker, that's going to hold everything. And it's probably going to have the contraption design for the fan. And then we're going to have wrist 2, which is the cover. And then we're going to have wrist 3, which is the actual device that's going to help the wrist move. This is for the spasticity of the wrist team. Now, for spasticity of the fingers, we needed a little bit more of a design change. So I couldn't exactly draw a water drop shape, as you guys said, but I tried my best. But then, of course, this is something you guys can change during your 3D modeling. Since I did separate spasticity of the fingers into multiple groups where we can have a little bit more differences in our ideas. So this is something we suggested where let's have some other shape than just a cylinder. Let's have it some other shape where it's a little bit more ergonomic and the patients can hold on to it a little bit better. So this is just one model I thought of in this spot. And you guys also talked about, oh, how about silicone pads or something that maybe caresses your fingers, but maybe not holds it too tightly, has a space clearance, but also, it's comfortable to fit in. Like it's going to hold your hand in, but it's not going to restrict you. And of course, this is top-down diagram where the shaded part is where your fingers are going to go to. Kind of think of it like a Lego hand like this. So with that said, I did some 3D modeling beforehand. So let me share that with you guys. Now, remember that this isn't the end product. This is just kind of like, I have this in case you need like a reference picture, or I need this in case you're like stuck and you don't know what to do and you don't know how to start CADing. Okay, let's see if I can share my screen. Oh, and by the way, if anyone has questions or comments during our meeting, please just feel free to unmute your mic and ask me.
I did have a pretty broad question, Kim.
Yeah.
So just with the device in general, so obviously hemiplegia is primarily found in people with strokes, right? Is this designed to be rehabilitative as well, or just assistance with grip and wrist motion?
It's not exactly assistance with grip motion, because that's you're thinking kind of like an exoskeleton. It's a little bit more complex. What we're trying to do is rehabilitation, where we try to make the patient's hand move even in general, just gripping motion.
Yeah, that's the main purpose. rehabilitation.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that it was rehabilitation and not meant for function.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with that said,
I have a quick question. Is everyone laggy, or is that just me? Like, is that my internet, or is everyone laggy
No,
just for
everyone
everyone
seems
in
fine.
general? So I guess
No,
it's
good.
my internet. I might leave and rejoin.
Yeah, feel free to do that. Okay, so with that said, let me
And I
show you
can't.
guys.
So this is how things are going.
So let me what was that, Michael?
I can't. So things are going to stay like this.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, here's just a general model of what our device is going to look like. Of course, this model has details and intricate, compartments all shaped out of it. It's a very basic model. So of course, as you guys 3D model this, you guys are going to have to put in a little bit more detail, a little bit more shaping, maybe try a different shape, maybe try a different functionality or things like that. Oh boy, it's lagging with Zoom screen share. Okay, so this is basically our entire design. A patient's gonna put his or her hand in through here, the blue part, and then they're gonna grip onto this gold-plated grip. And then, as these things retract and move like this, their hands are going to open. And then as I move these things like that, their hands are gonna close. And you might be asking, well, how does this relate to spasticity of the wrist? Well, we can move this entire thing. Let me show you guys like this. We can move this entire thing to also move this. That's why this design is strictly separated into two parts. Spasticity of the wrist, which is this part, or I should say this part specifically, and the spasticity of the fingers, which is this part. Now you guys might be saying, well, why does the spasticity of the fingers have a little too little and spasticity of the wrist have too much? Well, the spasticity of the wrist is a little bit easier to CAD. It took me like around an hour to CAD everything for spasticity of the wrist. But then for the fingers, it's a little bit harder. It's intricate shapes, and since Autodesk is a little bit inflexible with free drawing shapes, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. But don't worry, I decided to distribute roles a little bit more separately for each compartment, so you guys won't have much trouble dealing with, how each part fits with each part. Okay, so does anyone have any general questions with how our end product should look like? No? Everyone kind of clear on what we're like aiming for? This is, okay, don't look at this and think of it as, oh, we have a model, we're done CADing, right? No, we want to have a more detailed, CAD. And especially when you look at this model specifically, there's no area for clearance because you should be adding clearance for each rotational axis. There's no precise, coding, as you can see over here. It's not exactly precise. I just kind of made it work at the moment. And, even with this hand design, we could probably have a way better shape, or, maybe you can try to do some intricate arc shaping to get an actual water drop shape. Or maybe you could do a little bit more intricate CADing so that you can get this handle a little bit more finished and polished up. So please don't look at this and say, oh, we're done with CADing. This is just a very, very basic model. This thing took me only like 3 hours to CAD. So if you guys take each part, you guys should only be spending like 30 minutes to an hour total to CAD one part. And at the end of the day, what we're going to do is once you guys CAD everything, we're going to put it in an assembly. And if you guys are thinking what's an assembly, well, it's just a combination of multiple CAD parts, but then we put constraints in it so that it acts like if it's in real life. So everyone kind of see the direction we're heading towards. Each person is going to CAD one part, and then at the end of the day, we're going to bunch it together and we're going to make it look like this. But instead, if you guys CAD it, when you guys CAD it, everything's going to be look polished up and not very basic like this. Because at the end of the day, this is a very, very basic CAD model. And now you guys might be thinking, well, this looks complex enough, you know, how do I make this more complex? Well, don't worry. You're only going to take one part. So let me show you what I exactly mean. You might be in charge of doing risk 4. This is the name of that part, risk 4. And all you have to do is create 2 rectangles, equally space them, and then put just a hole in it. And that's all you have to do. It will take you, I can guarantee you, it will not take you over an hour. And you might say, oh, how about more complex shapes like this? Well, first of all, I'm only going to assign one side to one person. So you don't have to worry about 2 handles. You only worry about 1. And then we're going to see what's some benefit with this shape and what's some benefit with other shapes. And then we can try to see over there. Everyone kind of see the gist of what we're heading towards? Anyone have any questions? Okay. So with that said, let's go over some a little bit more precise planning. We're going to go over part review and dimension sheet. Now, here's the name of the parts we have prepared. Specific to the wrist, we're going to have W1, W2, W3, and W4. I'm going to show you guys later what all of these mean. And specifically the fingers, we're going to have F1, one for left, one for right, F2, one for left, one for right, and F3, and that's just, you know, universal design, so it doesn't require left or right. Now you might be asking, what do all these numbers represent? Well, let's go over them. W1, wrist 1, is the base plate. It's the very bottom of the device, and it must be big enough to cover all exterior compartments. So think of it as like, you know how when you buy a cake, you always get that sheet that holds the cake for you? Think of it like that. And remember, I just calling it fan compartment. There's no like specific name for it. I'm just talking about this giant arch. Fan compartment must be able to contain the rotating module. And I'll show you guys what a rotating module is. This right now, I know this might look complex for you guys. You might be worrying, what the heck is this? Don't worry, I'm going to go over this during designing. But think of this as a reference sheet. When you make anything in CAD, you're going to need precise numbers. And this is me kind of showing, here's some precise numbers you can use, or some numbers you might not use. Remember that when you CAD, all of these parts have to combine together. So if you get numbers wrong, things might mismatch. So I want you guys to know about this beforehand. You know, I don't want to overload you on information, but I want you to know this beforehand so that when you CAD, you don't make the mistake of getting the numbers wrong and, you know, it's going to look mismatched and all wrong. So I'm just telling you guys, this is called a dimension sheet, and you use this to reference specific numbers so that when you combine all parts, everything looks tight and everything looks fit and everything fits one another, and, you know, think of it like that. So moving on, W2 is the module cover. It covers the rotating module, should be big enough to contain the rotating module inside, and it acts as a box. It acts as a box because it's hollow, essentially, inside of this thing. It's kind of like a cube, and someone attached like a weird-looking semicircle in front of it. And here's some dimensional drawings, dimension sheet, of course. Okay, and W3, rotating module. I kept saying, oh, this needs to contain the rotating module. This needs to fit the rotating module. Here's a rotating module. It rotates around the circle, this circle. It holds the specifically the fingers module on top, which are these 2 pins. Yeah, it's fine, Max. Don't worry about it. And remember that the circle must fit the cover, meaning that this module cover has to cover this rotating module. And of course, here's a dimension sheet for the future. And this is W4, arm restraint. It holds the arm in place, and it must have holes on each side to screw the model into a favorable position. You know how like what's a good reference? You know how when you get like a chair, there's like adjustable levels you can do. Think of it kind of like that, because some people will have, you know, thicker arms, some people will have thinner arms. So what you can do is if you have holes and screws, we can probably just screw it in the machine. As in, if the machine has holes already pre-drilled in them, we could just change the level of how thick it needs to be. People kind of get that. Do you guys get the concept for that? So like, you know, it could be like this for one people, but then you take out the holes out, you make it this thick. You take out the holes out, you can make it this thick. You know, kind of like that. And of course, foam and silicone padding is optional. And here's a dimensional drawing. I know this one looks very complex. I don't know why I had to draw so many numbers in it, but don't worry. This is the simplest one to CAD. It just looks very complex, but in fact, all you have to do is mind about numbers, because remember, this thing is going to be on top of something, so it needs precise measurements. That's all it is. Now, first, oh yeah, what was it?
I do have
Michael?
a quick question.
Yeah.
In regard to this, so we're going to make this more complex, though, correct? Like we are going to make it more intricately detailed. So perhaps we'll have the actual system for which that those two panels can adjust as well.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I just created that 3D model like in like, I would honestly say around 2 hours 30 minutes, because I just had to redo
are all the
part.
parts going to need to be redesigned? Is that like just a very basic base, or is anything? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I want you guys to CAD everything from the beginning. What was it, Alex?
With this one, so some of these numbers are fairly arbitrary, right? Like the distance between the two being 3.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. See, I'm just showing the dimension sheet to you guys at first, just so that you guys kind of get the idea of, oh, we need precise numbers for certain things. Because like, I know, especially for CADing, in retrospect, it's a lot of math. You actually have to do a lot. I had like 2 pages full of just like stuff I had to write down, because if you don't get the numbers correctly in first, then it's gonna, you know, kind of imagine everything won't fit correctly. Some piece might be longer, and you might be saying, oh my gosh, this thing's too large and this thing's too small and this doesn't fit. So of course, when we go into actual modeling, which is the 11th, for each one of you guys, I'm going to tell you guys very specific instructions. Like, for example, this one, I could say, oh, remember this 3 inches on top, that can vary. Remember that 0.3 is a necessity because we want to have screws that are 0.3. Remember this 1 inches can be anything as you want. Remember that this 0.5 can be anything. And, you know, I'm going to like go over that with you. So don't worry about it. I'm going to try to help you guys as much as possible. I know a lot of these dimension sheets might look complicated, but trust me, I just put in a lot of numbers just so that when you do need help, you can quickly look at those numbers and get them for reference. So please don't be overwhelmed by them, everyone. CADing is only hard because usually when people try to CAD complex shapes, they're not prepared at first, because usually you need like a page of planning before you do a complex CAD project. But don't worry, I did all those preparations for you guys. So you guys should have a very smooth experience with CAD. Okay. Oh, and were there any other questions? Alrighty, looks like we're good to move on. So this is F1. LR just means 1 for left, 1 for right, hand grip. Shape could vary for each design. I know, Jake, you wanted to do like a water drop shape. I'll try to like, when you do CAD this, I'll try to like tell you how you could try it. And, you know, each design could have very different features. Like maybe it's hexagonal, or maybe it's not smooth. Maybe it's not like that. And, you know, you can make a lot of design implementations with that. You must make sure that patients can grasp the grip comfortably. This is one important factor because these people are going to use these machines probably like 1,000 times or maybe 10,000 times just until they recover their hand. We want to make sure that this grip is very comfortable for them so that, you know, they don't have much problems with gripping. And 3, point of rotation must be off center. Now, I know you guys might be asking, what does point of rotation must be off center? What does that mean? Well, oh, and this is just a dimensional sheet for what I did. But what I'm trying to say is, you see how this circle on the top is on the middle, but then this purple circle is kind of like on the top? That's to ensure that the machine doesn't clank on each other. So I would like to show you, but I could try to use my hands. So you see how if we have two semicircles like this, our objective is to open up like that, right? If we have two semicircles, but the point of rotation is on the middle, then it's going to clank in. You know, there's not much movement. But if we make the point of rotation on the end, then you could open up and close. Think of it kind of like a crane almost, where like those robotic arms. The point of rotation is on, you know, the closest to the actual stick. Think of it like that. Does everyone understand this point? If this is a very important point, so I'll try to like show this to you guys in the model we have here. So if you guys look at this model, you can see exactly what I was talking about. Over here, there we go. Over here, if our center of rotation was on the middle of the circle, this wouldn't work as intended. But since I made it offset to the end, it can rotate with space. You guys kind of see that? Like how the point of rotation is over here and not in the center. It has free movement and they don't clash into each other. Kind of think of it like that. Like that.
Now, are those pads going to fit softly on the hand, or are we going to need to
that could vary by design.
Shape them? Because like we could make them mostly foam based so that the person's hand wouldn't have any chance of getting smashed.
Right, but then the problem with making it too soft is that maybe it won't open correctly, or even when it opens, it might not open properly. So I guess that's just, you know, well, how should I say this? A hard part of rehabilitation. Yeah, a hard part of rehabilitation where it's sometimes some parts are just going to have to be uncomfortable, but, you know, it's going to help them. So, you know, but of course, we can try to make things a little bit easier for them. Definitely. Like Ethan suggested, you could have something like a silicone pad, or maybe, you know, as you can said, we could put foam pads too. That's a great idea. So I hope everyone, when they CAD this, they can implement those ideas into them. And of course, when you guys do CAD these, I'm going to make sure that you guys have an easier time so that you won't have to have difficulty with how do I actually add foam pads or things like that. It's very simple. It's probably going to take you like 10 seconds max. Okay. So with that said, this is F2LR bottom plate. I just put F1 there because I was unsure if I should combine it with the grip, but don't worry, this is a separate compartment. It's the bottom plate. It must fit both the grip and the cover module. The rotational hole should be off center, like I said. The shape may vary with grip design. Everyone kind of get this one? It's just like a plate that's at the end of one of the grips. That's all it is. I just designed it. You guys might be asking, why do we even need this plate in the first place? And that's a good question. If this person loses strength on their hand, but they still need rehabilitation, they might slip off the machine. As in, if there's nothing holding the actual hand, they might slip off. That's why we have this, just in case. It's kind of like, we want to make sure that there are safety measures involved in our design too. Because, you know, we're not going to go into like patient trial testing like once a week and get like data results. We're not exactly going to do that. But we do actually want to do that so that whoever uses this device, and the doctor that's helping us, you know, implement this device, or maybe he might think of using it, you know, can use it without having to worry about safety features. This is just like one of them. And I want you guys to, as you CAD, think about these factors too, that this isn't just some robot, but something someone might use. You know, so like try to round off sharp corners, which I'm going to show you later how to do. Try to make it a little bit more realistic, things like that. Just keep that in mind. And this is one simple cat drawing. Of course, this one is also easy too, but there's very specific dimensions you should be wary about. And this, F3, hand cover. This probably took me 20 to 30 minutes to cat by itself. This is the hardest part. It must fit the hole in the grip module. It must cover the hand while also giving enough space and clearance for the hand. And the shape may vary for each design. And you guys might be wondering, do we really need a hand cover too? We want to make sure that the hand cover can easily pop off. So you see how it has like a pin at the top? That's meant so that if the patient has trouble putting their hands in the device, they can do it without the covers. And after they grasp the grip comfortably, they can put on the hand covers so that we can make it two ways. That's why the hand cover is going to be a challenge for the specificity of fingers department, because you want to make sure this hand cover is not a burden for people to use, but still make sure it holds the hands tightly so that people don't slip off. Everyone kind of get this concept? Okay. And of course, this, if you're catting for this specific design, you're going to have to use something that I'm going to teach you later. But everyone else, you don't need to worry about what these curved lines are. You're never going to deal with curved lines except if it's not like a predefined curve. Only the F3 are going to have to worry about this. So you guys don't have to worry about that. Now, for part assignment, specificity of the wrist, specificity of the fingers. After I just do this anyways. After I assign you guys your numbers, like I'm gonna say, Jake Marisic, you're gonna take F2R or F3L. I'm gonna send you guys specific blueprints and specific dimension sheets for each one, so don't worry about that. But then I don't want you guys to be confused over which part is which. So let me try to go over that with you. Let me reshare my looks like someone will be joining. Okay. So let me kind of like redirect you guys so that you guys can be like refreshed on which part is exactly which part. Before I do anything, is there any specific part you guys want to see or like how it functions? Okay. So just as clarification, wrist 1 is the green plate. You see how this is the back plate for the entire device? It fits everything. It's large enough to fit everything, and it kind of like cuts off all nicely. That's the job of the green part. You need specific directions, but don't worry. This should be a little bit easier for you guys to CAD. Now, for wrist 2, which is this cover, you see how I said it was like a box? It's a box because you hold on to this thing. Inside this box, it's mostly empty. That's something we're going to tackle later with our mentor and see how we can wire in, specific axles and stuff.
Now,
Michael,
in regard to the box, yes. Would you like because whatever we use to make the actual little walls that hold the arm in place, would you like us to CAD whatever moves them along with the box when the time comes for it, or are we going to do that later?
That's a good question. We could handle that if you want to like go out of your way to make your CAD a little bit more intricate and detailed. That is something you can do, and I'll make sure.
What if they don't fit? Unless people work together on the different models, it might not coincide.
What do you exactly mean by that?
For example,
they're 0.3.
No, but the thing is, if somebody does a design that doesn't fit with someone else's design, just when they change things, like
Michael, that's a great question. That's a great question, and let me try to answer that too. And you get, yeah, that's a very legitimate concern. Hey, what if Jake makes a change on W1 and that doesn't fit with W2? And you guys are like, what the heck, this doesn't work. Now, that's why the dimension sheets are there for you. Let me quickly show you guys again, just so that I could give it to you guys as an example. The function of the dimension sheets are not exactly to tell you what to do, but show you what exactly you have to do for sure. So when I give you a dimension sheet like this, and let's just say I'm giving this to Jake. Hey, Jake, this is your dimension sheet. I want you to handle this. Now, I might say, Jake, this design over here, you don't have to follow everything. But Jake, please make sure that the clearance for here is 0.75 and the whole thing is 4 inches tall. Since I told Jake that it has to be 2 inches wide and 4 inches tall, Jake can do whatever else, unless anything that doesn't change those two numbers. And I can say, oh, Jake, when you do the axles, you can't change anything with the axles. And Jake would be like, okay, got it. I won't change the axles. Now, for that part specifically, the box, I might say, let's just say, Junso, you're going to have to CAD W2. And I say, well, Jacob, what can I change to it? And I say, you can change anything on the top over here and the sides, but please make sure it is 2.5 inches tall, 5.5 inches long, and 6.63 inches wide. And the circle's diameter is 3 inches. And then Junso might be like, oh, okay, I got it. And then while Junso is CADing this, Junso might ask, oh, Jacob, is it fine if I drill a couple of holes down here or maybe put like a pavement? And I could say, oh, that's a good idea. And I could talk with rotating module, risk 3, and see, hey guys, how's your CADing going? And I go, okay, I got the specific numbers. And I could go to June and say, hey, June, looks like risk 3 doesn't need that extra space. You could drill holes in it. So it's kind of like communication is very important. You kind of see what I mean? So like when you do make extra changes, I don't want you to tell me every changes you make, but then if you do want to add something, what's the word for this? Significant, I want you to tell me. Like if you're gonna drill like 6 holes down here, I could tell you like, oh, that's fine. Or, oh, you probably shouldn't do that. But when I give your dimension sheets, this is a very like early concept of a dimension sheet. When you do actually start 3D CADing this, I'll make sure to like tell you guys the essential facts and like what exactly you have to follow and what some things you can change. So like, for example, the hand cover, I might show you this and you might say, okay, I got this. What are some things I have to follow? What are some things I can change? I could say, oh, the top plate needs to be 1 inches and the bottom plate needs to be 2.5. Now, and then you might ask, oh, is there any limitations on how much space is in here? And I could say, oh, no, there isn't that much. You could put silicone pads there, or you could put some other padding or things like that. So don't worry, guys. I'm not going to just give this to you and say, oh, okay, go do it and don't talk to me. There's going to be a lot of communication. And since CADing one device with a bunch of people is especially harder, I'm going to make sure that, you know, the group leaders and I do the bulk of the effort with the whole math and dimensions so that you guys don't have to worry about that. So everyone kind of clear on the whole why we have the dimension sheets and why we need specific numbers? Okay.
Jacob, just a quick question. Are the numbers in inches?
What was it?
Are the numbers in inches or centimeters?
Yeah. AutoCAD, the default numbers or the default units are in inches.
Okay.
Okay. So with that said, we just went over risk 2, which is this box, and let me go over risk 3. This giant part over here is risk 3. This giant part over here that moves the wrist. So there's that. Now wrist 4, of course, I said these are the pads. The reason why I chose the textures to be like checker marked over here is because I want you guys to think about drilling holes or making pavements to make these things adjustable. So like, for example, you could draw one hole here, one hole here, one hole here, and one hole here. And then you guys could adjust it by putting a screw on top of it. Now, moving on specificity of the fingers. There we go. Okay. So this was what I was kind of talking about. You guys need a base plate over here just so that the patient can rest his hand over here. Because, we don't want their hand to accidentally slip off, and that might be a health concern or safety concern. So with that said, this yellow part, let me try to make it a little bit more modern. Okay. This yellow part over here is going to be F1R and F1 left. This over here is going to be F2R and F2. Actually, yeah, no, never mind. These base plates are going to be F2R and F2L. And these hand covers are going to be F3. Now, these F1 and F2 need side-specific instructions, but then this base plate, there's no curves into it, so you don't have to worry much about it. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to stay on this design. Is there anyone who have questions with each specific part or each specific compartment? Or everyone kind of clear on what each part does? I don't want you guys to CAD something without knowing what it does. So this is a time to let me know, hey, do you have any questions with what each part does? No? I spent a lot of time, like showing you guys what we're gonna do and concept pictures. So you guys, it's normal. Yeah, it's normal that you guys are understanding this a little bit quickly because I spent a huge time on explaining our concept. The worst thing you could do with CAD is one, don't have precise numbers before starting, just blindly CADing something, and two, not knowing what your part does. Because if you know what your part does, you could make adjustments and go on the spot and then change things on the spot that will fit your role because you know what it's going to do. Like, especially for the hand covers, let's say you're CADing this and you're making it a little bit too thick. You might be thinking to your head, wait a minute, this is supposed to cover your hand. This doesn't need to be thick. You can change it a little bit. And especially with the grip too. If I just told you to CAD like a pole with two cylindrical base ends, you guys might make something that kind of looks like, those Rome pillars. Yeah, you guys could maybe CAD that, and I'd be like, no, that's not what I meant. So it's good that you guys are all understanding what each part does, but please keep in mind those functions while you're CADing this. Now, for people who are overwhelmed, don't worry. I know this thing might look complex to CAD. Don't worry. CADing is actually way simpler than it actually is. And of course, for each person, I'm going to make you guys CAD it without any difficulties. I'll give you guys support. And the whole reason why I chose 4 group leaders instead of just like 2 or 1 vice president is because I want 2 of those people in each group to help you guys too. I know not a lot of people were able to sign in today. I got like, how many emails did I got? Like 5 to 6 emails today about like, oh, I'm sorry, I have like church or something. It's completely fine. But then, especially for group leaders, try to understand it 102% so that when those kids or when those members are like, hey, Jake, what part? I got parts risk 3, but I have no idea what it does. Then Jake could instantly show them. Of course, I'm going to send this model to the group leaders. Jake could pull this model up and say, you see how, and then Jake could say, you see how this model moves and it kind of facilitates motion? That's risk 3. And he might go, oh, okay, thanks. So everyone, do you understand the basic design for our model as well as what each part does? Give me like a thumbs up or like a head nod. Okay, it's great that you guys are picking this up a little bit faster than I expected since, I thought maybe some of you guys might have a little confusion with how our thing works, but looks like everyone's kind of getting it. Okay, so with that said, let's go over our major part. Actually, I might even do this later, but let me just get group confirmation with the group leaders. Group leaders, you guys kind of understanding what we need to do from now on?
Yep.
Honestly, I understand everything except for the things that hold the hand in. That might need some reworking.
Things that hold it. Oh, like the covers?
No, the bits that look like a column. That's the only part I don't get. Everything else makes sense.
Yeah. See, I couldn't spend too much time catting that. Of course, that's a hard part too.
Yeah, that makes
looks
sense.
like a couple of people joined in.
I just want to make sure it actually helps. I just want to make sure the hand actually opens and closes, you know?
Yeah. Don't worry.
Okay.
That was a very basic design.
I mean, that's not my area anyway. I understand all the rest stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good. Jake and Ethan. Well, Ethan, if you're oh wait, Ethan's here. Oh, okay, that's great. Okay, so for specifically the fingers, now the wrist department, they're gonna have a challenge. I shouldn't say challenging time because you guys won't. You guys' main objective is to get your constraints right, make sure all the dimensions look right, and make sure everything fits in nicely and tight, and that's your main goal. For the specificity of the fingers, guys, your main goal is to come up with what complex shape can help these patients grasp onto the pole, or what complex shapes can fit into the hand. Because if I had the diagram for the finger covers, it takes me like 10 minutes to CAD the whole thing. Specifically the fingers, you won't have to CAD a lot, but you have to CAD smartly and think of, wait a minute, which part do I have to use properly, and which part, how can I make this curve look better, or is this curve a little too thick, a little too thin? Trust me, guys, the specific fingers, yeah, of course it's going to be hard coming up with those shapes, but once you do come up with those, it's going to be like 5 minutes CADing the entire thing. Now, especially the wrist people, you don't exactly need to come up with complex shapes on the spot, but you will have to do a lot of formatting and setting the basic principles and making sure everything fits nice. So with that said, does everyone, and I mean everyone, not just the group leaders, understand the gist of, hey, I know what we're going to do in the next 2 to 3 weeks? Everyone can understand it? Okay. We have 10 people this meeting, which is perfect. 5 and 5. Let's see. I might give roles out. I might give roles out off screen, or maybe I should just do it now. Alex, you're on wrist. Ethan, you're on. Alex, you're on wrist. Ethan, you're on fingers. Jake, you're on fingers. Junso, you're on wrist. Lyndon, you're on wrist. Marvin, do you know which group you're in? I think you're in wrist. Okay, wrist. Michael, you're in wrist. Robert. Junso, is Robert in fingers or wrist?
Robert's in fingers.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so it's a perfect 4 or 5. So let me take a quick screenshot of you guys so I know who actually, know what they're doing.
Should I leave the Zoom? Because I came for the last 5 minutes.
Who was talking?
Robert Hamra.
Okay, Robert. Here, okay, for people who've just joined, I know Ethan, you just joined. I know Robert, you joined. Let me show you guys just a very quick rundown, and this is a good reminder for other people too. So Ethan and Robert, you kind of see this giant complex model over here. Our plan for the next 2 to 3 weeks is one person is going to 3D model one specific part, meaning, Robert, you could be in charge of modeling this thing, or modeling this thing, or modeling this thing, just one thing. And then at the end of 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we're going to put them all together, and we're going to have something that looks like this. Now, don't worry about specifics just yet, because I'm going to review specific parts you're going to CAD anyways, but this is the general gist we're doing. You kind of get that? Okay, that's good. Don't worry, guys. Don't feel like this meeting is the end of me introducing you guys which part you're going to do. don't worry. This is just like a very brief introduction. There's like a bunch of things I need to tell each person what each part needs and what each part can't do or can do. So with that said, thank you very much for coming to this meeting. I know we covered a lot of information today. I know we covered a lot of, specific things. Thank you very much. Hopefully I didn't overload you guys information. Please make sure to have AutoCAD by the 11th or next week. It's, it takes like 10 to 15 minutes to register. Just put your student ID card and you'll have it instantly. When it does say you need an activation key, I think Lyndon had this problem. Don't worry about it. Just click I already have a license and click run. You don't actually need like a code or anything. If you guys have any problems with installing CAD, with the club in general, or the designing, just let me know. Just DM me. I'm on the computer like 7 a.m. to 5 a.m. So, I'm probably going to, respond to your questions anyways. So with that said, thank you very much for coming. Please don't be overwhelmed. We're going to start this officially on the 11th. Until then, everyone, please look up like a video on AutoCAD. Maybe look up 1 or 2 videos on how to do basic things. Please, please, please do it. I'm going to introduce you guys to it anyways, but it's way better. What was it? What was that?
I will not be able to be there on the 11th. I will not be able to be there on the 11th.
Let's see. Okay, it should be fine. I mean,
Jacob?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, these 2 weeks are the weeks I have mock trial tournament, so I'm basically completely booked all day Tuesday and Thursday.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's fine. I could probably just call you. See, like Autodesk, it looks hard, but then it really isn't that hard of an application. Michael, you come on, you're really smart.
Yeah, no, I'm not concerned about that. I'm just warning you that I won't be able to make it. I'm not concerned about learning how to use the actual program. I'm just letting you know I won't be able to be at the meeting.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. For the next week, I'm going to assign you guys everything and basically go over how to use CAD. So don't worry, people. We're going to take this, one step by one. So with that said, unless you guys have any questions or comments, you guys are free to go. Thank you very much for coming. This club's going to, go forward one way or the other, no matter how hard it gets. Alrighty, guys, you guys are free to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did have a question, Jacob.
Yeah, Alex, what's up?
So I noticed with your, I don't remember which part it was, but for one of the dimensions, it was like 6.63 inches wide, I think.
Yeah.
And it is that are the numbers we're using for the dimensions arbitrary just so that everything lines up, or are those like the actual dimensions that we're planning on using for the end piece? Because I mean, 6.63 inches seems like an excessive amount for the wrist. So is that just for space, or?
Oh, that's a very good point. See, the 6.63, that specific number, I remember it because I had to do like a bunch of math to like figure it out. It's actually really funny. The 6.63, I know it might sound a little bit weird, but it's actually like a calculated number that accounts for the rotation the thing is going to have.
Okay.
So it's kind of like it has to be big only because we want to contain the rotation all the way through.
Okay.
So don't worry. If you do get that part, I'll make sure to explain what that number means a little bit more specifically.
All right.
Alrighty. No problem. Take care, guys.
Thank you.